Hello everyone, this is Chidanand from Kratz Infotech NG. Welcome to this tutorial on BitBucket integration with SonarQube. In this tutorial, what I would demonstrate is first how to set up a simple Maven-based Java application. Now there has been some request from some of my subscribers asking for a quick demo on setting up a very simple Maven repository, maybe for a very simple quick start kind of an archetype, so that the project structure for a Java based application would come up. I will then add some class files and some sort of a test classes to it so that I can use a small plugin called Jacoco for getting the code coverage percentage. Later on, I will demonstrate how to first commit this locally and then push it onto Bitbucket. After that, I would demonstrate how to spin up a SonarQube server locally and then how to integrate the Bitbucket, the source code that is present on our Bitbucket using a simple, a pipeline kind of a syntax, how to connect that to get the source code from Bitbucket analyzed by a SonarQube. Now, what is very important is the versions of the tools that I plan to use, starting with JDK. Okay, it's very important to get the exact versions of these tools because there's a dependency on some of the tools, and these tools themselves have got some dependencies. So JDK is what I plan to use, JDK version 17.0, and this is the Oracle JDK. And then the Maven version would be 3.x. Any 3.x should work well, but I'm using the version 3.6.3. The SonarQube version is 10.4.1. This is the community edition of SonarQube, which will be hosted on my Windows machine. If you take a high level architecture of this as to what all SonarQube needs for integrating with any of the Git servers, pretty much if at all you would have seen some of my previous videos, the tool sets and the configurations is pretty similar. SonarQube would need, or rather any of the Git servers would need to know where is the URL of your SonarQube, what is the URL of your SonarQube. Also, if at all a pipeline is supposed to get into SonarQube and demand that the source code be analyzed, it has to have the right kind of authorization. So possibly a Sonar token. Few more stuff that is required, again, depending upon the kind of programming language that you have used. The minimalistic is a project key. The location of the source code, the location of the class files, and a bunch of other parameters are present based upon different programming languages. For Java, I think these three, I mean, from a project perspective, the project key is sufficient. Also, if SonarQube, there are a couple of ways of integrating SonarQube and Bitbucket. I'll demonstrate one of them. If at all you were to integrate SonarQube a lot more tightly with the Bitbucket, therein, let SonarQube go and pull all the repositories under a particular user, you may have to create an app user or create a connected app by providing some sort of a token where either at a repository level or at a user level, SonarQube would have all kinds of permissions to go and pull in this repository. First things first, let me show you what is my environment variable setting or the path and environment variable setting. Java home. My Java home points out to the JDK, that is installed program files Java. Also, there is a Maven home, which also points to the folder where I've unzipped the Maven 3.6.3. Also, one other thing that we would need is the path, the JDK path, the bin folder of our JDK. This is all that is required to be set up for enabling or starting the Maven thing. Again, there are multiple ways of doing this exercise. What I plan to do is I will use a command line kind of an option. What is more preferable is using some sort of an IDE for using Maven, but I'm more comfortable with the command prompt. So I'll show you in a command way, irrespective of whatever tools that IDEs that you would want to use. This would be one of the ways in which you can come up with an archetype. So I'll also leave you the URL of the documentation that I'm referring to. The first and foremost, let me create a folder structure by specifying Maven. Okay, before that, let me just check if everything works well with Maven from a command prompt. MVN version. Okay, it has got the version of the Maven home, also the GDK version. So everything looks okay. This is all that is required. So let me just copy this and maybe make some changes into this. All right. I'll just make some modifications. I will let this is okay. The group ID is okay. The artifact ID. This is the name of the folder under which the whole repository would be set up. I will put it as let's say BitBucket Sonar demo. Now this is a little more apt. Okay, and if you look at the important aspect, artifact ID or artifact ID, which is the archetype quick start. Okay, that is sufficient. Okay, let me just copy this command. I am putting it right inside my local folder out here. Now, what is more preferable is that you put up a simple, you use one of the IDEs for running this stuff. All right, in no time, a folder gets created. A folder gets created where, if you see this, this is the folder. This is the folder that gets created. So let me go to this folder, BitBucket Sonar Demo. And if at all I say tree, you will find all the source code as well as the applicable test classes in two different structures. Now, what I want to do is I would just want to add a bunch of more class files just for getting something called as a code coverage percentage. So I will add one class out here, a simple palindrome kind of a thing, some sort of a functionality that your application would do. And also I will add the relevant test class for it also. I'll somehow write some bad test cases with very less coverage so that when Jacoco gets integrated or when you see a code coverage number, that number very clearly denotes all the missing pieces of the code. I've opened the source code, the folder where my source code was generated in an IDE. This is the Visual Studio IDE, and you will find a couple of stuff out here. So the default one, what got created was the app.java. And if you take a look at what is there, this is exactly what was generated. Hello world, probably, I'll try to add something more here. Um, trying to create BitBucket pipeline for Sonar integration, something like this. All right, so this is the default code that got generated, and this is where my application logic, or if at all I put a lot more classes in the package, this is where most of them would be under. And relevant to this app, there is a test which does the unit test cases of the app.java. All right, so now I've also added another class called palindrome. It just checks it, inputs, it accepts a string and checks whether it is palindrome or not. I also added a palindrome test. Now in the test cases, this will test my palindrome. Purposely, I've not added all kinds of scenarios. I've just added one very, very simple test case so that the code coverage numbers shows up less. Now this is the change that I've done. Also in the pom.xml file, I have added the plugin that is responsible for doing the Jacobo code coverage. Okay, the complete thing starting from this plugin till its end. That's what I have kind of done out here. Okay, this is what has been done. So I've modified my changes locally, and let me run MVN first clean. I just want to, because I just run this once. So MVN package. Okay, and this is well within that folder where my source code is present. Now, depending upon the dependencies, a lot of things will get pulled. The first time you run it, it will be a little slow. The Jacoco, you will find Jacoco reports and other things out here. So it also ran the test cases just to figure out the code coverage percentage. Okay, so now if you're going back to the Maven help, um, this is how you build that package, and then in case you want to verify, okay, Java CP. Now this is exactly what we would want to do, just to verify first if at all our application is correct or not. Okay. Also, I would just like to see what is the name of the jar file that got generated. This is a little different because we gave a different name for our project. All right, so let me just copy this code. Okay, and I think I left everything else the same. We don't modify anything else. Oops. Okay, instead of this jar file, the name of the jar file would be what modification that I done accordingly. So under the target folder, there is this jar file. Okay. All right, now you see this is what we will see because more code got compiled and packaged. Also, one other important thing to note is if at all you go to the repos, go to my folder, there would be under the target, there will be a folder called site, Jacoco, and a beautiful uh, file, HTML file that will also give you the code coverage percentage. Okay, it's kind of dug into our source code and telling us clearly what is covered, which part of the code is covered by a test case and which isn't covered. All right, as simple as that. Now, assuming that this is all that I wanted to do, accomplish, I would like to go ahead and check in the code locally using Git and then push it onto BitBucket. But before that, let me just do one small thing. Um, I will add something called as a dot git ignore for Maven Java project. This is, because if you notice, there would be a bunch of files that we created under the target folder. We don't want any of these to get pushed to our GitHub repository. We want Git to ignore it. So coming to my repository folder, oops, this is my folder. I will add a file here, or let me do it from here, notepad dot git ignore. All right, this is what I would want. Whatever is under target folder, ignore it, and a couple of other things. Now let me just save it, right? And let me, oops, dot git ignore. Excellent. Okay, now let me first commit my source code locally. Okay, so git initialize, git add dot, git status. Okay, pom.xml, git ignore, all the Java classes. That's exactly what I wanted. Git commit hyphen am first commit some commit message. All right, so this is all that has to be done from the client. Now on the server, we have to push this code. If at all you use an IDE which is authorized, um, you know, many of these Git servers have got authorized IDEs, which has got direct integration with them. For Bitbucket, I think SourceTree is the IDE. I don't want to use that. So what I'll do is I will manually go ahead and log into my Bitbucket. This is my Bitbucket login, and let me create a repository. Okay, repository name should be exactly the folder name that we created here. Okay, bitbucket sonar demo. So I will manually go ahead and create this. Okay, the project can be any project, it doesn't really matter. I don't want this to be a private repository. I can keep it public because anybody wants to reference my code, I want to give you the link to it. Include a readme, no. Default branch is master. Okay, now that's the branch that, if at all you type in, the Git client will always create a branch called master. Now this is the branch that I want to push. Include git ignore, no, I already have my git ignore. So go ahead and create a repository. So a blanket or a kind of an empty folder gets created. All that I want is a reference link so that I can push my source code, my connect my local GitHub to this, or rather Git client to this, and then push it. So git remote add origin, and then if I do a git push -u origin master. All right, so the master folder, master branch gets pushed onto a master branch, and it starts setting it up as a remote tracking branch. So if at all I refresh this, you will find my source code out here. Now one part of my task is completed. Let me go ahead now and start my SonarQube locally on my machine. Um, my local SonarQube is a simple folder, a zip file, which I've unzipped, SonarQube 10.4.1. That is the enterprise, that is the community edition of SonarQube that I've downloaded. Go to Windows and CMD and start sonar.bat. This has got a dependency on the JDK. All right. Okay. I know this problem. So let me just, it's just the task manager. There's a port that for some reason is being used by one of my other services. I have to just stop it. Okay. So SonarQube will take some time for this to come up, and the only dependency for SonarQube is a supported JDK version. So my JDK 17 is kind of compatible with SonarQube. So let me just give it a few minutes for SonarQube to come up. My SonarQube server came up. So let me try to log into my SonarQube server. The default SonarQube server runs on port 9000. Um, okay, I seem to have logged in already. Let me just log off. When you first time log in, the username would be admin, and the password would also be admin. And as soon as you log in for the first time, you're required to change the password. So this is my SonarQube local SonarQube server that is running. And there are multiple ways in which you can integrate SonarQube with a lot of Git servers, be it Azure DevOps, be it, when you say Azure DevOps, your repository would be on Azure Repos, BitBucket server, that's what we want. Assuming it's an enterprise server, BitBucket Cloud, the bitbucket.org, GitHub, also GitLab. It's got a lot of these configuration. Also, it tells you, you know what, you don't want any of these. You can also go ahead and create a local project, and later you can link it to any particular CI server, or even run the analysis using a scanned way. If I take a look at import from Bitbucket Cloud, it asks you for a personal access token. The access token will have to be created on Bitbucket with a lot of privilege and stuff like that. I may not want to do that particular way. Let me try some other way of doing it. Maybe I will try to create a local project and put out a very, very simple settings. And I will use these settings in my pipeline script that I'm going to use. So let me call my project, local project. This is Bitbucket Sonar Demo. I will call it with the same name. Okay, that sounds good. Project key, something that it auto generates. What is the main branch? Our main branch is master branch. Okay, next. Um, I'll use with the global setting. That sounds okay. Create a project. Okay, now it also tells you how do you want to kind of integrate this. Do you want to integrate with the Bitbucket pipeline? If so, it will tell you what all options has to be specified. What would be the Sonar token, how to generate a token, how to specify the URL, and also the URL of the SonarQube server, because Bitbucket will have to push the code to your SonarQube server. It gives you pretty much all the steps. And also, if at all I choose a YML, or rather, sorry, if at all I choose what kind of a project I would want to analyze, it gives me the YML equivalent of what needs to be put in. Okay, complete details is out here. Very, very, helpful and informative. I let me do this. Let me generate a token first. Now, this is a project specific token. There are multiple ways. You can also create a global analysis token if that is what you want, or when you want to cut down the roles and responsibilities, try to keep small tokens for very, very small or a project specific setting. So let me go ahead and generate a token. Um, okay, this sounds good. All right, so I will just copy this token for some, some my reference, so that I would use this a little later on. So this is my token. All right, and this expires in 90 days or so, or 30 days, or whatever is the time duration. Or okay, after that, I'll have to expose my SonarQube server to the BitBucket server, which is running on the cloud. Okay, it also tells you what kind of URL or what kind of variable to specify. Okay, and it will give me all these you know YMLs that you can use in order to put up a pipeline. So now, in case you know a little bit of Docker, you can visualize that, oh, the base image is going to be some specific Maven base image, and then there's some sort of a steps out here. All that it does is Maven MVN verify sonar hyphen D, a bunch of parameters that you can pass in. One of the important parameters is the project key. One of them is the project name. Sometimes it's always advisable to pass the uh, other specifications like the URL of your SonarQube and the authentication token. Now you may want to create a settings.yml file also and put that down there, but then that would involve kind of modifying the source code, which probably you may not want to do, and then you're better off by putting all that as some sort of a specification. Now let me start adding few more stuff to this blanket YML that is created. So let me copy it and put it out on Notepad plus plus. Little better, looks a little better. So out here is the same set of YML that is present. All that I would want to do is I would want to add a bunch of other variables right here by specifying hyphen D. A couple of things that I would want to add. One of them would be the URL of my SonarQube server. Now my BitBucket runner or BitBucket CI would be running somewhere on the BitBucket cloud. Now it has to reach to my SonarQube server. Given the fact that my SonarQube server is running locally, I will use an utility called Xerox to expose my local SonarQube server onto a public URL. So I've already done that. I've already exposed that. So this is the URL which is publicly reachable from anywhere outside, from the outside world. So if somebody hits out to this URL, they would be redirected to my SonarQube server that is running. For some reason, my machine or my network seems to be very slow. Oh yeah, this is okay. This is my SonarQube server. Excellent. So I'm going to put these out. Either I can put them out in plain text, or a better option would be to um, go to my GitHub repository, or rather BitBucket repository, and add repository variables. Now, sometimes you may have to go ahead and enable the pipeline in order to make these repository variables. So I've already done that. Okay, so if I come here, repository variables, I will add a bunch of key value pair. The first and foremost, I would want to add one variable called sonar host URL. So let me just copy this as well. Sonar host URL. And what should be the value of this? The value should be the publicly available SonarQube server URL. Okay. All right. So let me add that. I will also add one more variable called sonar token. Add a sonar token, and the value for this is something that I will generate automatically. This is the token, so let me just copy it. It's only visible once, so I will just paste it here and I will say add. So these two, I can either put them in plain text, but at least the URL is okay. The token is not a good idea. So anything that you would want as a variable to be available to your pipelines, you would want to put them out in repository variables. All right, so these two are put in. So I will make use of these two variables in my pipeline script by referring to them. So let me make that change. I've added those two variables as an additional parameter. If you come down to the end of this, -d sonar.host.url equal to dollar, and within these flower braces, the variable that I put out in the repository specific variable, and token is the token that we modified. Now, this YML looks pretty good, but let me go back to the GitHub repository of mine and check what kinds of, if at all I were to define a pipeline, all right, create your first pipeline. It gives me a bunch of scripts. Okay, now if at all I can say I would want to create a Maven project, and the UI is not that friendly in my opinion, but again, the UI is all, you know, the beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. For me, this doesn't look very, very good and appealing as compared to GitHub, but it's all right. It kind of serves the purpose. It gives me, the blanket kind of YML. That can be used. Also, you can add a bunch of other pipelines. If at all you were to say Sonar, it gives you a typical Sonar scan information out here as well, with all kinds of supporting documentation. You see here, there is another script that can also be run. There's a ready-made script also that is available if you don't want to launch MVN. Okay, but uh, internally they pretty much do the same thing, and they along with the target as to what kind of a goal that you would want to run. It kind of picks up a bunch of variables and accordingly runs Maven in the background. Okay, so you will find lots and lots of options as I mentioned earlier. There's so many different ways of doing it. Okay, now we don't want to get into all that part. We already have our YML, so all that we'll do is let me just copy this and let me get rid of this. And already have this YML. Control A, Control C, and hopefully my YML should not have any errors. Okay, let me move this out. Okay, URL -d. This just spills over to the next line. In case you make some mistakes, I think there's a little bit of help that you see in some sort of something showing up in red out here. Yeah, some things like this show up. Uh, Again, YML is pretty hard to um, to manage. All right, so we are doing MVN verify, sonar, and rest of all the thing that we're specifying is the name of our project, project key, where is our sonar host, and then the sonar token. So coming back to my SonarQube out here, this project is what was created. It's still, kind of an empty kind of a project. If I go back here, you'll find this BitBucket Sonar demo that is still put up, but then there's nothing, no integrations as yet. So let me put this out here, commit the file, and hopefully a pipeline should get triggered. All right, the pipeline gets started. Okay, this may take a while because I'm running the pipeline for the first time. A Docker container would get spun up in the background. Um, it has to, download all the tools that is required, the plugins that is required. On top of that, um, send the code on to my SonarQube, which is somehow running very, very slow for some strange reason. All right, this is pretty good. Let me just come down quickly and I see, okay, some sort of an error that I see here. Let me just quickly check what is that. Probably the URL and the token that we specified is not able to. Okay, you will also get an option to download this the logs from the runs. Okay, so let me take a look at this. Okay, the Sonar host URL cannot be reached. That seems to be the problem. Let me just double check. As I mentioned, it seems to be a network issue at my end, and you don't have to do all these part in case your SonarQube is reachable to your BitBucket server. Okay, let me stop the recording for a minute and ensure that I debug this out. Looks like a simple issue. Let me restart that particular tool, and then maybe if I get a different URL, I'll publish it and somehow get my pipeline to run. It took a lot of time for my demo to get completed. The reason being my network was very slow. Previous runs got aborted because of network issues. Also, I think I'd forgotten to add one small YML dependency. Let me just show you that. Uh, it was there in the XML. Was not bad. Okay. These were supposed to be specified in the Palmer XML, which I missed out. So the plugin was not getting downloaded. That was one of the issues. And of course, the network issue. So finally, if at all you would notice, it asks for a lot of stuff. It asks for a lot of stuff, heavy network heavy, and the whole communication happened through one of my tunnels that I had opened up from the BitBucket cloud onto my local box, which was very slow. So it took some time. Finally, everything looks good. It finally says that it's able to download everything, and the run is marked as a success. And more importantly, if I come back to my project here and if I refresh this, okay, there you see, this is the analysis of my code. Okay, you will find some open issues, and I'm more interested in taking a look at this coverage percentage. Okay, each of the code that is present, it has kind of dived in and said what piece of code is covered by a test case and what piece is not covered by a test case. Okay, so if I come back, of course, on top of this, you can put down any quality gate that you would want to. The first time integration is a little bit problematic. Once you get that going, the rest of the thing is all dependent upon your use cases. I hope you liked my demo, and I will leave all the documentation and the link to the Bitbucket repository in the comment section, and you can take a look at it. And as usual, if you have any questions or if you get stuck, please leave me a note and I'll try to address it as soon as I can. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for stopping by and watching my video. Have a great day.